Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the Minister of State at the Finance Ministry for his keynote address.
Thank you, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and all dignitaries. I stand on the protocols of the previous speakers. I remember, was it Ronald Reagan who in his campaign said the famous, "Read my lips, no new taxes," and promptly decided to do so as soon as he got elected. So I'm not going to go there because, you can't take my word for it about reading my lips. But what I think I could do is set the stage and give you some background as to where we are, where we come from, and I'm hoping that will help us in our deliberations today. I'm hoping that we'll be able to come up with some great ideas today during the panel session, and I'll be all ears looking to see what we can incorporate into our budget because, businessmen and women like yourselves and citizens are the ones who feel the pulse of the nation and understand exactly what the issues are. But to set the stage, I think it's important that we remind ourselves about where we've come from. 18 months ago, we were all thrust into the COVID pandemic through no fault of ours. It had a devastating effect on our finances and on our plans and programs. We had enjoyed 3 years of consecutive growth at about 6.9% between 2017 and 2019. We had reduced the policy rate from about 25.5% to 16% by 2019. Reserve position had improved to about 3.5 times import cover in 2016 to about 4 times in 2019. And we had chalked a positive trade balance consistently, amounting to about $2.3 billion in 2019 as against a negative position of $1.8 billion in 2016. So for all intents and purposes and by all measures, we seem to have done pretty well going into 2020, and we're very eager and looking forward to a year in 2020 that would have even chalked up more gains for us. And all these achievements were made possible by prudent monetary programs, sound fiscal policies, and targeted structural interventions that helped Ghana to be better positioned to weather the impact of the pandemic. However, COVID hit, and by the end of 2020, GDP growth had slowed down from 6.9 to a very anemic 0.4%. Inflation had crept up, but remained around the 10% target. The cedi stayed pretty stabilized at 3.9%, but which is comparable to 71% between depreciation between 2013 and 2016, and 26.3% between 2017 and 2019, and 30.2% between 2017 and 2020. However, we saw our debt to GDP balloon to over 76%, and as well as we saw a precipitous drop in our revenues, entirely because of the COVID pandemic. So that was how we sort of started 2021. Clearly, we had to really review our policies and our strategies and come up with a budget that was anchored on debt sustainability, but also could provide some kind of fiscal stimulus that would provide the stimulus to push us back out of the COVID-induced recession. So but we had to anchor this on debt sustainability because we had really, because of the COVID pandemic, really increased our total debt stock. So we focused the budget also on consolidation and also on completion of existing projects. We figured out, look, instead of announcing new projects, we should focus on all these projects that were out there, partially completed, and focus on completing them rather than introducing any new projects in line with the whole fiscal consolidation stance. Really managed to have a careful blend of fiscal consolidation where we brought the deficit down considerably, but at the same time managed to identify programs and policies that created or generated the growth we needed to sustain that 6.9% GDP growth. It's a very fine balance to be able to balance the two. On one side, be consolidating, and on the other side, be investing for growth. Because people will say to invest for growth, you have to have expansionary policies. So that was the focus for the 2021 budget: prudent economic management, sound monetary policy, a firm commitment to return to the Fiscal Responsibility Act of under 5% by 2024. We also introduced the Ghana Cares program, which was an ambitious 100 billion package between government of 30 billion and private sector of 70 billion over the next couple of years to drive or provide a stimulus for growth. We've seen some economic recovery in 2021. Q2 GDP growth indicates growth of, I think it was 3.9% in Q2 of 2021. Reserves positions have improved, and the lending rates have continued to decline to about 20.5 as of August 2021. As I said, our latest estimates suggest the economy grew by 3.9% in the second quarter of 2021. And we believe, while the deficit remained firmly at 9.4% against a target of 9.9% of GDP, as reported in September 2021. Our focus over the immediate to the near term is to press ahead with economic and fiscal reforms to lock in economic stability and lay the foundations for sustainable and inclusive growth. The second phase of reforms being implemented under the Ghana Cares program reflects our resolve to use the pandemic as an opportunity to build resilience against future crises and support an equitable post-COVID recovery. Ladies and gentlemen, fiscal discipline is even more important, essential today because of the changed global climate. Across many African countries, fiscal policies and debt levels came under severe pressure due to limited policy space and domestic and external macroeconomic vulnerabilities, increased health expenditures, and the need to provide fiscal stimulus combined with revenue loss exerted strong budgetary pressures on government financing. I'm sure you've all noticed recently the global sell-off in our Euro bonds on the international stock markets. There's been a general sell-off, but I think those of Ghana has been quite pronounced. It is a situation that is of concern, but I want to assure the audience that nothing fundamentally has changed. We are still on track to meet our deficit. We are still on track with regards to our revenue targets for the year. And we believe that the market reaction is not based on the fundamentals, which are essentially just as robust as they were 3, 4, 5 months ago. And we believe that in this coming budget, we would be able to reassure investors about, the credibility of what we are trying to do as a country. There's also been some capital flight as investors have moved funds back to the United States as yields in the West have become more attractive on the back of quite a lot of quantitative easing and a lot of spending, which has pushed rates up and inflation, which makes, rates back home vis-a-vis those here a little more attractive. So for the more conservative, it has been timely for them to move back to the West to invest. We've continued to focus the budget, this coming 2022 budget, on some key highlights, especially given the backdrop to where we are today. We continue to still have high debt levels. We continue to still have challenges with regards to our interest rates. That has had an impact on ability for private sector to be able to borrow at attractive rates to fund investments and expand the economy. We continue to see some serious challenges with regards to job creation, especially for the youth. I think the just ended census confirmed the fact that Ghana has a very youthful population, and we're churning out graduates every day who are struggling to find jobs, and we really need to be able to create an environment and jobs opportunities for the youth to be able to make sure that they are employed. So on the back of that, this budget is focused on expenditure rationalization and optimizing the implementation of flagship and strategic programs, widening and deepening existing revenue sources, including expanding the tax net. Due to the elevated debt levels in 2020, we saw our fiscal space continue to be eaten up by high interest expense. If you look at how much of our revenue we're using to service our debt, it is clear that we need to look at how we can reduce the cost of borrowing. I see my good friend here, an MD of Stanbic Bank. What he didn't tell you is that we had a meeting with him and his colleagues, and we were like, guys, this interest rate environment is not sustainable. What can we do to reduce the rates so that we can get the impetus to move this economy forward? Alongside that, given the fact that we have such high debt levels, we have to focus on revenue maximization. And we still really do not believe that we are maximizing our revenue potential. I think our tax revenues as a percentage of GDP is under 14%, between 13 to 14%. Most countries, even some of our peers in Africa, is closer to 18 or 19%. So clearly, there's a lot of room for growth. We've set up a revenue assurance unit within the Ministry of Finance with a focus on trying to plug the leakages. We also feel like the digitalization drive is putting in place the foundation to be able to formalize the economy and create the basis for us to be able to generate more revenue. But it's a fundamental cornerstone or anchor of our budget into 2022, the importance of digitization and deepening and widening the revenue sources. As I said already, debt sustainability amidst fiscal consolidation is also a big priority for us. We want to make sure that we continue to focus on putting our debt on a declining path as we move forward in order for us to get to what we believe should be normal levels around 60 to 65% debt to GDP. We also should not underestimate the importance of herd immunity through an aggressive vaccine rollout campaign. Our people can only be productive if they're healthy. And if, as you see, people still are not really, the workforce is still partially working from home. Not everybody is in the office. And so therefore, I do not believe that our productivity levels have gotten back to where they were prior to 2020. So it's important that we get everybody immunized, vaccinated, so we can get back to normal as quickly as possible. I think right now we have more than enough vaccines in town. And for those of you who are not vaccinated, I really encourage you to do so. And because the uptake has not been as good as we would like. And for some reason, people don't feel like they need to get vaccinated, but I think it's absolutely important that we do. We are not out of the woods yet, if I may emphasize that, and we should make sure that we get vaccinated. We also would like to focus this budget on returning our GDP growth to levels around above 5% in the medium term, and looking to invest in the productive sectors of the economy to achieve that. And last but not the least, focus on job creation, especially target to the youth, and also entrepreneurship, because we believe that, especially in the environment we are today, we really need to find ways to create a more entrepreneurial society, a society where everybody is not afraid to venture out and try a business or some kind of occupation and provide them with the tools and the training to be able to do so. If we all or a lot of us try something entrepreneurial, more likely than not, we might create 2, 3, 4 jobs in the process. I remember, I think it was 2 weeks ago, my minister mentioned that the payroll sector is full, much to the consternation of a lot of people. But I think he was just telling the truth. And if we have that mindset, I think we'll all start to look outside of the box and outside of the typical employment channels to see what there is available. I must say I've been very impressed by what I see online and the creativity and the resourcefulness of the Ghanaian people. If you go on Instagram and you see the fashion and the artistry and creativity of Ghanaians who now have a platform, a global platform, and the likes of Amazon and Instagram to be able to showcase their wares. So, that challenge we had when we were growing up, where if you wanted to start something, you had to literally not go from door to door or spend a lot of money on advertising. You really don't have that barrier to entry now in terms of trying to come up with your own products. And I must say there are some really talented people around. There was a text going around the other day about a gentleman who is doing furniture. And, there were pictures of it and his number was on the bottom of it. And I saw some of the furniture and I was like, whoa, this is really, really, really cool stuff. And, with WhatsApp and Instagram, he can reach tens of thousands of people. And, so maybe the only challenge or impediment to people like that is capital, startup capital. So we need to figure out a way to provide that, $5,000, 10,000 cedis for startups. And same in the agricultural sector. I think I was listening to City, was it earlier on this year, and they interviewed a gentleman who had a piggery. And, when you listen to him and where he started from and what he has today, you realize that you don't really need a lot of money to start, a piggery. And it can be quite a lucrative business. Then they also interviewed a lady who had gone into palm in a joint venture with some chiefs and had, now has a pretty sizable palm plantation. And I was very impressed. And then there was another gentleman I spoke to who was growing corn. And the sort of analysis he had applied to corn growing, I was like, whoa, including the spacing, how to maximize every acre. And I was like, we are thinking, And so I think we need to really encourage that entrepreneurship drive and find ways to create a more entrepreneurial society right from the curriculum in the schools so that, we provide the youth with the right tools to be able to capitalize on that, and rather than sit at home waiting for that public sector job. So, ambition and to use the 2022 budget to extend opportunities for all Ghanaians. Doing so will necessitate the creation of fiscal space and a strict commitment control in budget implementation. The initiatives to be announced in the 2022 budget will be centered on gradually returning our economy to deficit levels under 5% by 2024, while maintaining our commitment to invest in infrastructure, promote enterprise growth and entrepreneurship, and support social and welfare systems. We are confident, just the same way that we brought this economy back to life before the pandemic, that we can do so again post-pandemic. Our ongoing pre-budget consultations are also examining how to provide targeted support towards vulnerable communities to manage the spread of the virus and encourage economic activity. We will also deepen engagements with the private sector. Working in tandem with the private sector will be crucial for realizing our growth aspirations and crowding in the requisite funding to support the CARES program, which I mentioned earlier. Ultimately, our target remains to create a conducive, compelling, and ultimately resilient economic environment fit for business, enterprise, and innovation. With regards to the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, in Africa, over 8.6 million cases have been recorded as of today, 2nd November. The recovery rate is about 92.2% compared to Ghana, which is about 97.2%. However, sadly, we have lost over 1,200 lives to date, and our condolences go out to the families of those who have lost a loved one to this pandemic. We need to make sure we all get vaccinated. I cannot say that enough. With that being said, Ghana is aggressively rolling out its vaccination program. To date, we have received over 5.33 million vaccines and over 2 million vaccines have been administered. Let me use this opportunity to encourage all of us to get vaccinated so we can achieve herd immunity and build greater resilience as we build back better. In fulfilling each side of our unwritten social contract, I'm confident we can achieve from this year a sustainable and robust recovery. Thank you all very much.